Alright, what's up YouTube? Welcome back to the Cutlass Board Games channel, and welcome back to another Blood on the Clock Tower video. However, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about the World Cup script competition. Basically, people submit scripts with a special Djinn rule where the gameplay is fundamentally altered in some way, or a character or something like that is changed so that it gives a unique clock tower experience according to that Djinn rule. There's 16 of them. I've played through 6 of them, about that. Those videos already recorded. They're scheduled way down the line. But while this is hot and happening, I thought I might go through and have a look at them all. We're going to have a look at each script, read through what characters are on it, read through the Djinn rule. We're going to talk a little bit about the design ideas. Do I think it's balanced? Do I think it's fun? How hard is it to run as a storyteller? That kind of stuff. And then we're going to be giving them an overall ranking and a tier list, because YouTube loves tier list content. I'm going to go through, put them up there. It's going to be my opinion. And from an all-rounded perspective, how good do I think it is overall? How excited would I be to play it? How excited would I be to run it? And also, if I did play it, what was that experience like? First one on the list is Binary Supernovae. Let's pull up the script. So it says, if a demon dies by execution, good wins. This is different from the actual rules of the game, which is if there is no alive demon, good wins, because there may be dead demons. There may be stuff like the Scarlet Woman, which could catch the demon, which, you know, supersedes the loss of the game. But in this scenario, if a demon dies by execution, good wins. And the summoner only removes one demon, not every demon, and there is +1 demon. So there's going to be potentially 2 demons in play, or a demon and a summoner to have a second demon come in later. Now, my read of it is that the summoner should kind of be required. It gives the good team 1 free day. There's no other fabled on here. I feel like a toy maker would actually be really good to help balance, potentially keeping the good team alive, because if there's so many extra deaths, the good team is at a bit of a disadvantage, unless if it's a really big game. So it's like really tough to play at 7 if there's 2 deaths every night, and there's going to be +1 evil player, which is fine, right? If you know that going in, you go, well, we have 12, we have 13, let's play Binary Supernovae. So let's have a look at what we've got on here. A couple of you start knowing characters: Empath, Fortune Teller, Oracle, Innkeeper, Gambler. With the exception of the Shugenja, this is all base 3 stuff, pretty much. And then the Magician. So if you had only ever played base 3, the Shugenja and the Magician of the townsfolk would be the only ones that you would need to figure out what they do. Shugenja is really straightforward. Magician is a little bit more complicated, and playing it can be a little bit more complicated, but I think that's fine. I don't think this is anything too crazy. There's Innkeeper, Exorcist, Soldier for deaths prevention. And Exorcist is interesting because it won't stop all deaths. It will potentially stop 1 death if it hits a demon of 2. Having stuff that has extra deaths, like the Grandmother and the Gambler, will make the game go really, really fast. I think if you have it on like shying smaller player count, you just can't play those characters. What does the Philosopher become that strong? I don't know. Info, probably. Fortune Teller. Philosopher's a weird pick here. I think it's fine. It's just trying. This feels like it's trying to be a Bad Moon Rising type script. You have Outsiders of Butler, Tinker, Sweetheart, Moonchild. Again, extra death, extra death. And Sweetheart Butler is a little interesting as well. Butler is an interesting pick because there's nothing else that interacts with voting. I think, contrary to popular opinion, the Butler is not a terrible character. And the Butler with the Flower Girl is a really interesting synergy, because if the demon bluffs as the Butler, they can explain why they've been voting, or excuse themselves for registering as ES potentially. Alright, let's look at the evil team. We have the Assassin, the Zan, the Summoner, the Mastermind, the Puka, the Imp, and the Oho. So, if the 2 demons you have are the Puka and the Imp, you have 1 poison person that then dies, and then the Imp. It's interesting the imp specifies a minion becomes the imp, not an evil player, so that the imp can't overwrite the other demon. The Oho could potentially kill the other demon, because if they're not in play, the Storyteller chooses who dies. So the Storyteller could potentially help the evil team by killing a demon that had suspicion on it, and then frame them as a imp star pass, like if it's a booker. Could use the Oho to frame an imp star pass. Seems bad, but I'm trying to think of what this script uniquely does with 2 demons with the characters selected. For me, when it comes to working on new and custom stuff like this, normally you need custom characters to help bring about what that new different scenario is, because the characters that exist were not designed with the intent of what you are now making. And I think that's where some of the script competition ones are going to suffer a little bit, and I feel like this one does as well. If you knew that you were going to have 2 demons in play, you could have 2 watered down demons potentially. Like if the Oho's in play, they're never going to pick the soldier, right? The fortune teller probably dies immediately, and then the empath, and the fortune teller is the only really good info character there. And when you have 2 demons in play, you get a 2 out of 3 chance of an Oho existing. The sign of change doesn't stop the summoner from being able to duplicate a demon, so you could have 2 Oho, which is interesting. In theory, the Oho can sync by naming a dead character, because it's only not in play does it become Storyteller chooses. So if the first Oho actually kills a player and the second Oho names the same thing, it will just not kill anything. So I think double Puka is maybe the most detrimental, because it does actually kill the soldier. No, wait, it is safe from the demon. Never mind, it does not kill the soldier. I don't know, I think it's just fine. Just the regular play count issue. I think it needs more info on it. I would swap Philosopher for another info character. And then playing something, I think the Zahn is like really detrimental. Everything else I think is fine. 2 demon game with Mastermind is really interesting. But I think it's fine because it has this, right? If the demon dies by execution, good wins. Unless there's a Mastermind, you get 1 more day, and then you have to know. But there could still be a demon killing people, and then you go, well, there's only 1 death last night. Does that mean that it's Mastermind day? Which is interesting. I like that interaction the most. I think the Zahn is a rubbish pick. I think all the outsiders I think outsiders in general can be just way too detrimental, especially when you have barely any info characters. So if it's an Oho, and the Zahn's replaced a bunch of characters with outsiders, and the Oho goes Fortune Teller, the good team just has nothing to go on, which can be really brutal. But anyway, I think that might be too much on just the one script at a time. Let's switch over to our tier list. We're going to grab Binary Supernova. I think it's A. I think it gets value for having a unique way of approaching the can we have 2 demons in the game problem. I think a lot of people have attempted this in the past. I've seen homebrewed demons that exist as a twin, basically. We've seen demons on like opposing alignments, but with the same kind of goal. And also like 2 demons that exist in play, but are trying to betray the other one or whatever. I think this one's just like the most straightforward version of it that works fine and has some interesting ways that it works. I think the only downfall is that it needs more work with the townsfolk. It's most of these scripts are just going to have little bits and pieces that you could adjust to make them better. Okay, the next, Buyer's Remorse. Will this load? Yes. Okay, excellent. So Buyer's Remorse is one that I did play. Let's open it up. There we go. Running a bit slow today. Players have 7 gold. Each day, an ability is auctioned. Highest unique bidder gains it until dawn, even if dead. Bids are not returned, bar evil ties and secret. So, we played this one and it was really interesting, and coming away from it, like I really like the concept. I really like being able to read in, oh, this person bid, how much? But my issue is the bidding system itself sucks really hard. in a 10-player game, there is 70 gold in the game. There is 3 evil players, and if an evil player bids 7 and it ties, they get the 7 back, right? And so there's no reason for a minion to every single day bid 7 on every single thing that they think is above useless, to either take it for themselves and then remove that from the pool, or to tie with somebody and remove their bid, which is kind of brutal. And it also has this insane shell game of okay, if I bid 7, another person will bid 7, and then someone bid 6, and another person bid 6. Do I bid 5? How low do I go? Do I bid 4? We had a player receive an ability by bidding 2 because there was only one tie above them, and it's the highest unique bid that gains it. And so there was 2 7s, and then the guy that bid 2 got it. The psychopath came up. I bid 5 because I'm like, this is a really hot ticket item. We're definitely going to get some 7s. We're probably going to get some 6s. I'm going to put in a 5, and I'm pretty confident I'm going to get it. We had 3 7s, 1 6, 1 5. I did not get the psychopath ability. And then because my read of this one auction failed, I do not get to bid on anything for the rest of the game. I have no gold left. So you're not truly bidding against anyone else. It's so hard to read what anyone else is doing. You're just kind of hoping for the best and throwing money at something and hoping to get an ability, which is kind of my issue with it. I would actually rather it was maybe a secret bid and you just DM the storyteller. The thing in the storyteller goes, okay, the new bid value is this much. And you go, well, do I put the next one in, right? And then the person that wins the bid, their gold is taken, or something like that. Like a bit more classic auction. It's a bit rough. The other thing that we did was that we said that we could only add abilities from the script. So let's have a look at the script and what some of the options for things being auctioned, and also what might be in play, because it does have a lot of very powerful characters. In the game that we played, we had the Leech, and the Leech was executed early on. And if you have a look by the psychopath, which is not quite the same, there's actually no other execution prevention. So the Leech was confirmed the Leech with no other scenario, which is not great. I don't particularly like that on the script. And so guess what the next bid auction ability was that came up? The Snake Charmer, which is crazy. And we also had the psychopath bid. We had the Fishman was the first one. And I think there was something else, I forget. And that was maybe it. You only get really 3 or 4 bids. So the ability that goes up has to help the team that's losing, I think. And also you have to kind of be willing to spend all of your money on it, potentially. But we have a couple of You Start Knowings. Village Idiot, which is like just great for rounding out an ability, a script's ability to gain information. Snake Charmer, which in the scenario that we had, kind of made sense. Dreamer is really good. Undertaker is really good. Engineer is really interesting because we have some kind of crazy options for demons. I think engineering a demon is much more interesting than engineering a minion, because you can't truly know if you're poisoned or not from a Zaan. Removing some of the other stuff I think is fine, or making a Zaan late in the game is interesting. So I don't know, you could potentially turn off a psychopath by turning them into a Zaan that could not activate, turn off a goblin by turning them into a Zaan that could not activate. I think that has interesting play, but potentially changing the demon type also has interesting play. We have the Night Watchman, which is also good. Like, there's a lot of info on this script with some tool, right? And then Ravenkeeper Mare. The Outsiders I think are fine, but like not too backbreaking. The Golem is really interesting. The Barber was the last ability that was auctioned because the demon could potentially swap with the minion. And so every time these things came up, the good team was like, oh no, if they take this, then they can move the person who we know is the Leech and put them somewhere else, which might be a problem. So we have to bid on it, otherwise we might end up losing to it, which is different from we have to bid on this because it would help us get information, help us win the game, which is interestingly different from what I expected out of the script. And then Puzzle Master, because there's no drunk, is really interesting as well, because at least we can trade the information off the poisoning. I think this is a good script. I think Zaan is just such a hard thing to read for poisoning in general, unless if the outsiders can be really public. On this script, the outsiders can be really public, and that's fine. So the design is not crazy strong. And the demons are kind of interesting as well. I think this is just probably just consistently good. It's my only gripe is with the auction. I think if the auction changed or the auction became more consistent, I'd be more happy about it in general. I think this is an A buyer's remorse. I think this is an A. Like I said, I just think the only thing that needs to be adjusted is how the auction is handled. Because I kind of walked away with it being like, it's either useless or evil always wins. And I can't tell which. And it's not good if it's either of these things. Like, of the two options, it's not great. Alright, so this is Council of the Dead. So this is also one that I have played. At the start of Night 4, dead wake together for 2 minutes. Then secretly vote on a living player. And then if there's no majority, the SD chooses. The chosen player gets a boon. So basically, this could be like fisherman advice. This could be like a wizard wish kind of a thing, where the storyteller is going to use this boon to affect the game state for the betterment of that specific player. So if that player is evil, it's going to be a thing that helps the evil team. If it's going to be a good player, it's going to be a thing that helps that specific player try and solve the game, which is interesting. Now, when I played this game, I was the soldier. I did nothing. I was not very helpful. And also millions of people claimed soldier and mayor, so I was really hard to believe also. But on that final day, I was the one that was chosen to get the boon, and the thing that I learned was that I had never been poisoned or targeted by anything, which was actually really helpful. Also, the storyteller believed that we were kind of winning, so it was actually helpful to kind of solve the game. But let's start with our evil team. We've got Vortox, Vigor Mortis, Imp, and so the reason why I had not been affected by an evil ability kind of, suggestion was a good boon was because the Vigor Mortis was in play, and I was next to a minion, and the person on the other side had been Vigor Mortis poisoned, not me. Whereas the Vortox doesn't interact with the soldier in any way meaningfully, and the Imp had not tried to kill me. Like, these two things were not in play. Baron could not turn me into an outsider. Summoner had not chosen me. I had never become Serenova's mad, and I hadn't said a Mezephili's word. So, it's pretty helpful soldier information. Let's have a look at the characters. So, a lot of this stuff kind of wants to... Let's look at the minions first. I think this is the most interesting spot, right? Because for the Council of the Dead, if the Council of the Dead is all good players, then the evil team cannot convince anyone to potentially give an evil player a boon. You need to have that evil voice in the chamber to be like, guys, look, the mayor is definitely the best choice for this because we need to trust them. If we can do something that's going to help us believe it's the mayor, whatever, we'll win the game. And they pick wrongly, and then that's where it falls apart. If it's just all good players, they have trouble. Vigor Mortis is really interesting because it's going to guarantee that you're going to have dead minions to influence the Council of the Dead, but also to have their ability still active while they're playing the game. But Vigor Mortis and Baron or Summoner doesn't interact meaningfully by Cerenovus and Mezephiles, kind of. So it's a little awkward. The Vigor Mortis is the right choice for how the script is played. The minions are not. I think the Summoner is there intentional so that you can guarantee you'll make it to Night 4, which in a 7-player game is not likely. And then you have stuff like the Soldier and the Monk to potentially also help get there, or help you believe that it's not a Summoner game. But I think Baron is the wrong choice here. I would change that for something that actually gets value as a dead minion. But I don't think Poison is the right choice. Maybe something else. Maybe Devil's Advocate or something like that. Something that is not poisoning but is interacting negatively. Like a dead Vigor Mortis mastermind that still has their ability. It's kind of insane. That would be kind of cool, maybe. The outside is not too detrimental, with the exception of the Damsel Huntsman combo is really nice. Damsel is fine. Minions can always potentially throw out a Damsel Guess if they feel like they're on the back foot, if they didn't get the boon or whatever. And the Drunk is really the main piece of misinfo outside of the Vortox and the Vigor Mortis, because there's no minion misinformation. And so you're trying to solve for Vortox at all times, really, which is fine. And then later, potentially solving for Vigor Mortis. This could just potentially be a solo Vigor Mortis script. I think that's fine, because that means that the Council of the Dead is trying to solve for which of the voices you're hearing is a minion, and then trying to rally everyone else to vote for the same person, which is cool. I think Baron is not great here. We could swap that for something else, but like you want to put characters on the scripts that interact meaningfully with the new rule. So Dead Evil Player is good, and so Vigor Mortis good, right? And so creating characters that interacts with these things meaningfully would be great. Like being able to add some custom characters that's like, well, for the Council of the Dead, or this is an evil character that does stuff while dead. Like the Zomble. Wouldn't the Zomble go great here? The Zomble registers as dead, the Council of the Dead, the Zomble wakes up with everyone. It's like, well, about that guy, my minion, or whatever. I think that would have also been fine. As for Townsfolk, they've got a nice mix of, the two protectors to make them potentially bounce. Fisherman info, also here guessing is pretty strong here. Savant info, Oracle info, Town Cry info. Like it has a good amount of information, and also the boon can be kind of relevant. So I think this is a good script. I think this is more balanced of the ones that I have played. I think this belongs in S. The concept added is not too insane, and it's not super difficult to grasp, and it's not super difficult to run. Right? He's just a slightly extra long final night of the game, which is not crazy, because normally the only person that wakes and kills is the demon. There's not usually a lot of info going on at that time. And then I think that's what you want. I think you want a general that doesn't add too much complexity to the game. Alright, let's move on. We're already dragging a little bit. We're only 3 in. There's many left. Okay, so next one is I See Dead People. Okay. Characters die as normal, but the storyteller doesn't announce deaths. Dead people can nominate. Poisoned players don't wake up. So there's an unreleased character that does something similar to the poisoned players don't wake up, which is still unreleased for a reason, I think. I don't think it was particularly good. I got to play it once or twice, and it was a bit underwhelming. However, this is very similar to a script I've been working on for a long time, Temple of Rot, where the Deadweight and the Crypt Keeper mean that deaths at night are not announced, and then there's a jinx where if you also have the Organ Grinder, then execution deaths are not announced, and dead players can nominate and vote. So it's basically the same premise. However, it doesn't require a character in play. It has the Djinn rule so that you can always have it. You don't need to be beholden to having these specific characters in play, which I think is fine. So let's have a look at what we've got. So Devil's Advocate, is that the only execution prevention? Yes. Pacifist? Okay. Means that it would not be. It just has deaths. I don't know if this means executions also. I assume yes. Is executed, but they don't tell you if they've died or not. You also don't know. One of the things that my version of this does is that deaths are told privately, so you know if you have died, but it's not announced to the town, and so you can bluff being dead, which I think is what this is trying to accomplish. But if there's an execution and they go, this person was executed, and then you move on and you don't know if they've died or not, is that person waking up getting their ability, or do they know if they are dead? Is the thing that's a bit crazy. Like a person with a passive ability, like the pacifist, dies, they go, okay, maybe I didn't die, I don't know. I have no idea if my ability's on or not, because I'm never going to wake at night anyway. If you're the champion maiden and you're executed, are you still waking up and you're just getting, what, nonsense info or something? or are you not waking up and you know that you were dead? In only that scenario, the wording is a little bit confusing on that one, which I'll be critical of, and I'm allowed to be because I'm egotistical and I made something better that does the same thing. But I think it's close, and like maybe it just requires extra explanation, but it doesn't have that here. It doesn't, like, this is all you get, which is a bit rough. I think it doesn't announce executions and deaths would have been better, but I'm not sure. And so then we have the mastermind, but you never know if the demon's even dead for the mastermind to activate, which is interesting, I guess. And then the poison, it just says the player just doesn't wake up. They don't get poison information, they just don't wake up. And there's no drunk. So any information you receive must be correct. With the exception of maybe the red herring. Oh, it says specifically only poisoned. So an evil player is incentivized to always claim philosopher, fortune teller, or something like that. Because there's no other way for there to be misinformation. Or philosopher dreamer. Dreamer's kind of broken here, unless if they just get poison locked instantly. This is really interesting in that I think the poison players don't wake up thing is really rough. It's like actually worse. Like it doesn't help the evil team. It's actually bad. Because it instantly tells good players. It removes puzzle to solve. Because you can always trust the information that you've got. Because if you're poisoned, you don't get information. And you know exactly when you're poisoned because you don't wake up. So, I don't know. I think this is kind of clunky. It's kind of my read on it. And the thank you and the imp are pretty straightforward here. We don't have a huntsman to pair with the damsel. So the damsel's in a really awkward spot if it's potentially getting Fangu to or guessed by minions. Recluse is an interesting pick here because the other three you would say are hidden. They don't want to be super public as outsiders. Whereas Recluse is like, yeah, look, kill me instantly. On the other hand, if the death is not announced and that you can't guarantee that you've executed somebody, the Recluse vying to get themselves killed doesn't really accomplish anything. So it sort of makes the Recluse better in a way, but I think that if you're going for hidden outsiders to match the Fangu, having 4 hidden outsiders is probably better. I don't know. I am in a special position to hate this script. Unfortunately, it's just not clear enough to me how it's supposed to function, and the poison players don't wake, which just helps you confirm all of your information. So I feel like it's actually not balanced in that way. I'm unfortunately going C tier. I'm biased because I just like what I've done with that mechanic better, where the deaths are just unannounced, but you will privately know immediately if you have died or not. You will no longer wake to your ability. You know that you're dead. If you've been revived, you'll be privately notified. You're aware that you have died. The evil team can always bluff to be dead because there's potentially extra deaths, and it's way cleaner like that. So, I don't know. I'm a hater, but unfortunately, it's I see dead people. Next is off to see the wizard. So this one, the special rule is if a wizard is in play, one good player knows, and each day while alive may privately guess the wizard wish and learn how accurate they are if a wish has been made. This is basically the amnesiac plus widow ping. I don't see any reason to not have wizard in play. If there's no wizard in play, this is tough because in a 7 to 9 player game, there is one minion and they will know if there is a widow in play or not, and they can bluff having received the widow's ping. In that same scenario, they will know if a wizard is in play or not and can say, I heard the wizard ping, I heard the wizard's call, and then can be doing whatever they want. What's interesting about this to me is that it makes the wizard more balanced, because the power of the wizard, and I've kind of shown this before in a video, where people just can't fathom the reaches of what it could potentially do. There's just not enough evidence. You can't solve for what it is, that it just creates so much noise and discussion that it detracts from actually solving the game. That's the power of the wizard. Whatever the wish does is irrelevant. The wish doesn't ever need to do anything. The wish could just be the storyteller starts speaking in Spanish during the day, and people are going to be, oh my god, what the fuck? And they lose their minds and they can't solve the game. And it's a bit crazy like that. This Djinn rule just feels like they're reining in a bit on the power of the wizard, and gives a good player the ability to kind of radar in closer as to what that wish was, which I think is fine. But the problem is, what if there's just no wizard in play? What's the point of playing the script? Like, the wizard is kind of Stormcourt, and so every game has to be a wizard game. You might as well not play any other minions. Otherwise, this just kind of doesn't work. Or, like, the evil team knows there's no wizard in play because it's a 1 minion game, and they kind of send it. So, I don't know. My knee-jerk reaction is that it's trying to solve a problem that I see as a problem, but I don't know how well it does. It probably does good enough. But it existing tells you too much information about the script and how... And what evil characters in play. Like, it diminishes the puzzle to do that. It should not be if a wizard is in play. It should just be one good player may privately guess the wizard wish and learn how accurate they are. One good player knows, and each day that one guy I picked, if they are still alive, can guess the wizard wish. So you never want to say that you heard the wizard's call, the evil team kills you, and you can stop guessing. This is getting worse by the second. What's the fucking point of having this? If the guy dies, they lose their ability to guess. The good team is incredibly incentivized to keep this person alive. You at least have something like the Savant that's going to be visiting a storyteller every day, but that only makes it a coin flip. You need to have a bunch of townsfolk going and bluffing that they are the guy that received the thing to the storyteller, so that the demon doesn't just kill them. I don't know if I like this. I just think it needs so much text cut from it. It should just be one good player learns that they are the person that can go and guess forever. You've been anointed, sir. Thank you. You're welcome. And one outsider or some shit may privately guess the wizard wish and learn how accurate they are if a wish has been made. While alive sucks. If a wizard is in place sucks. One good player knows, and they must stay alive. Really sucks. So I don't know. I think it's their attempt at adding clauses to try and help balance it, but the wizard's already an insanely powerful character. You don't need to wheel back on how heavy the reins are you're putting on it. Let's have a look at the characters, because I don't think it's too crazy. Having stuff like the Boom Dandy and the Scarlet Woman is interesting, considering how wacky the wizard is. I think that's informing what kind of wizardry you're expecting, where it's mechanical rather than informational, which I think is fine. The Kazali is just going to be like, well, I'm making a wizard. Or if it's me, it's like, well, I'm not making a wizard, and I'm the person that received the wizard ping. That seems horrible, because it means the Kazali always knows if there's a wizard in play or not. That's crazy. Hello, yes, I'm creating a Scarlet Woman and a Zan, thank you. Hey everyone, I heard the wizard ping. Oh, I have to stay alive? Oh, damn, I didn't catch that, but you should all trust that I'm good, right? And then I die at night, and the Scarlet Woman becomes the demon, and I say, well, the thing that I know is that the Scarlet Woman can be trusted or fucking whatever. It just seems still way too powerful for the evil team. Just the rule existing is too gameable. The outsiders are really powerful as well. What insane townsfolk do we have to be sitting on? I don't see any Dreamer, I don't see any Fortune Teller. Cannibal's pretty good. Farmer's pretty good. Having the 2 Dies at Nights characters is interesting. And then I guess the Savant is also a powerful info character. So maybe it's balanced. Maybe I'm just a hater of the rule. I just think the while alive thing really sucks. Unfortunately, I'm putting that in C. Maybe B. Maybe I'd be proven wrong if I actually got a chance to play this one. Alright, let's go next. This is already running way longer than I thought it would. And I'm not even halfway yet. Alright, this is One Day More. This one is infamously bad. So 1 day more. Signal failure. There is a 24-hour delay impacting all characters with abilities that know or learn information. So basically, the chef on the first night gets nothing. And then on the second night, the chef receives the chef information. You would think that that is simple. Well, for the chef, it's simple. For the fortune teller picks 2 people, and the fortune teller goes, that's great. Cool. And then on the second night, the storyteller goes, which 2 people would you like to pick? And the fortune teller goes, these 2 guys. Cool. And then here's your information from last night. And then poisoning is, right? Any kind of misinformation, crazy, makes no sense. Surely the widow is also affected by the delay because it learns. It looks at the grimoire, that's learning something. Godfather would be really funny. The Godfather learns the outsiders on the second night. Yeah, this seems really brutal. This is one that we kind of looked at in the group chat. We're like, we're probably not going to play this. It's way too much headache. All the information characters are really heavy info characters, like the Dreamer, like the Fortune Teller, like the Savant. I'm going to give you yesterday's Savant information. Sick one. It just seems exhausting, both trying to track everything as a player and also trying to storytell this. Also, there's just no downside to the evil team. So the evil team gets these powerful characters like the Little Monster, which I think is busted. The Widow, which is very strong. The Poisoner and the Zahn. So there's 2 different big poisoning effects. And Signal Failure only affects good players, really. Like, I could argue that it affects the Widow, but does it affect the Poisoner or the Zahn? No. Or the Demon? No. So, I think this sucks. I think this is easy lowest tier. Unfortunately. I think it's a cool concept. I think it's impossible in practice. If this was a game that was run by like a computer generated outcome, possibly, because then the computer knows how to solve it all. For a human, it's too hard. It's too much. Alright, this is Show Me Wonders. So, each night asterisk, all players secretly choose in advance to live or die if they were to be chosen by the Al-Hadikia. Al-Hadikia choices are not announced. So I played this yesterday. This is an S tier script. The only changes I want to make is some character changes, but this is an S tier script. We played this twice, actually. We played this once with the Al-Hadikia, and I was in the game, and I was the investigator that saw a pit hag. In the second time, I ran the game, and I put in a Shabaloth. And it was really good. It was really good both times. I think it needs slightly more information in it, unfortunately. And or the setup that I did in particular did not have enough information in it, which is a bit brutal. The Pit Hag is a really interesting choice here as well. So the Pit Hag is really only going to be making outsiders, and the outsiders all suck to be. And I think that it's just going to be like more possibly detrimental. In the game where I was the investigator, I saw the Pit Hag and we executed them immediately, didn't get to do anything. So I'm like, maybe it's not broken, but I think Godfather is way better at doing the same thing. It just puts outsiders in play. And so maybe the Pit Hag needs to be something different, like I'd like a Serenovus. But the selling concept, basically, is the Al-Hadikia, to me, sucks. It's a fantastic concept character, but it is unfortunately dog shit because you cannot have it in a script with any other demon also on it, and removing parts of the puzzle to be solved by the good team by knowing exactly what demon is in place sucks really hard. That's usually mitigated by stuff like the Leviathan. Leviathan says, hello, I'm the Leviathan, and you go, oh, okay, that guy is the Leviathan, and then that's fine because in a Teensyville you have one demon. The Al-Hadikia does not work in Teensyville because it can potentially end the game immediately, and so that's a little awkward. Whereas I really like the concept of the Al-Hadikia, but it doesn't work because you are fucking announcing that it is in play and it exists. This, however, is great. It solves two problems, actually. Firstly, the Al-Hadikia works perfectly and secretly, and it then gets to exist alongside other demons, and it could have other different demons on here just fine. Now, the Shabaloth can exist and can be hidden, and that's fine. The Shabaloth can resurrect players. The Al-Hadikia can resurrect players. And the... I don't know. It just fits really nice. I honestly think this is probably my maybe best pick. It's definitely S tier. I don't think I need to get into it too hard. Like I said, I'll just make some minor changes as to what's going on. Maybe add a little bit more info. But I really like it. I think it's possibly the best one. All right, let's take a quick water break. Now that I'm hydrated, I'm ready to continue. Okay. We're at the halfway mark. This is stowed away. So the rule says up to 2 recommended travelers might be in the bag and the play count lowers accordingly. Travelers are not announced. Executions and exiles are equivalent. So I have some questions. Basically, setting up either requires gardening or they've added a functionality to the app that I don't know about. But running this in person obviously is dead simple because he's putting traveler tokens into the bag. Now, I'm assuming traveler alignments are dealt the same. Everything else as the travelers are on the same. The difference is that the traveler is not publicly announced and executions and exiles are equivalent. So that last bit, executions and exiles are equivalent, is a nonsense statement to me and does not explain anything. Does that mean that I can exile any player? I can just call for an exile of the demon, it's a free vote, or my dead homies can vote, and I would never ever execute instead? I don't think that's what it's trying to tell me. I think it's trying to tell me that travelers are executed like normal and are not exiled instead, which makes more sense, but it's very unclear from just this line of text that I get. Everything else, however, I think works fine. Being able to bluff as having a traveler ability, I think is really interesting. Also, having the travelers on the script as townsfolk. So I think they have to be good. Is really interesting here as well. So these are custom characters that have been put in. Interesting. Being the deviant and bluffing and claiming as other things is very funny because no one knows you're actually the deviant. People just think you're funny and it's genuine. The actual deviant as a traveler is a bit like, it's a bit performative. It's like actually not that funny. This is way more interesting to me, which is kind of cool, I guess. I like the way that it's laid out so that it's actually more like this. And it also means that when you're setting up a bag, let me just go select characters that don't actually need an extra. I don't actually need an extra utility because they should just be here. Bone Collector. Part 2. Apprentice Deviant Scapegoat. That's interesting. Okay. Okay, I take that back. That works great. So let's look at the characters. Starting off with Puka Po Imp is interesting. Summoner, a bit goofy. Summoner Poppy Grower. I wonder why the Poppy Grower. The assassin could accidentally kill the demon. The poisoner could accidentally kill the demon. That seems bad. I think Poppy Grower is a really awful choice here. Back in my day, they were not called jinxes, they were called clashes. And if 2 characters showed up on the clashes list, they did not go on a script together. This feels like one of those things. But no, it became jinxes because then they could be like, well, what if we changed this slightly? And then it became playable instead, which I think is fine. The outsiders are pretty brutal. And the minions are pretty strong, with the upside of having the traveler townsfolk. So They've also added in square brackets reduce non-traveler player count, which is interesting. So we're playing 10, a traveler goes in the bag, it becomes 9. So it's, 1 minion, 1 demon, 2 outsiders, which is interesting. I think that's fine. I don't think there's necessarily any reason for that, except what's really nice about this is that if you have a 9-player game, you put the traveler in, you now have an 8-player game, and you only need 1 outsider. So the chance of you having outsiders is lower, and I think it's offset by them being extra brutal. I think it's fine, actually. Maybe I'm on board. Maybe this is a banger. You know what? I'm convinced. I'm not just a hater, you guys. I have joy in my heart also. Yeah, I think it's a banger. I think we need to go through and analyze and assess every part of it. I think it just looks good. Here's the Ballad of Seed 7. So this is possibly the best concept and possibly where I'm gonna get hate mail. So the Djinn rule is seat 7 remains empty. Its choices are arbitrary. Once per game, the storyteller may speak on its behalf. Basically, the storyteller is playing one of the characters in the game, but there's a limit to how much they can interact. So, let me describe for you the one game that I did play. We had a Boffin player, and the demon was the Fangu, and the demon was seed 7. So the demon never talked to anyone. We have no way of getting any sus on them. I was the fortune teller. I did not select seed 7. Seed 7 died on the first night. A player then claimed to be the farmer, because the Boffin gave the Fangu the farmer ability, and the Fangu jumped to the drunk. So the drunk had a townsfolk claim, and the Boffin claimed to be the dreamer and hard guessed a person's role on the first day, and then kind of guessed mine because the information was kind of public, and then went, this person who became the demon is either the boom dandy or the drunk. And I'm the fortune teller, and I picked every person except for them. I've picked, I'm alive in the final 3. I've picked the other person that's not the demon twice and got no's twice. And I haven't picked the person that is the demon. And I'm like, I know everything. It has to be that guy. But the demon jumping to them from the empty seat, and also the one time the storyteller spoke on its behalf was privately to the new demon. It felt incredibly evil favored in that scenario. However, I think seat 7 can do other interesting things as other different character types, and I think that's funny and interesting. And I think you as a player need to be wary that you do actually need to interact with this person more. And I think I obviously didn't interact with them in any way, and that's probably my bad. Maybe I should have picked them as a fortune teller. So let's run it through. So there's a couple of awkward jinxes. The Scarlet Woman Fangu is not broken, but is very strong, because it means that the Fangu can move positions twice, which is kind of crazy. The Boffin and the drunk is kind of just make somebody else the drunk instead, because the Boffin would choose in the very first night a player. You're like, okay, how are they gonna know if that person is an outsider or not? Just don't do that. Honestly. And the Pit Hag and the Damsel is also kind of brutal. I think that's fine. I think the Boom Dandy is a character that I'm probably a Boom Dandy hater. Either you make a script that works really well with the Boom Dandy, or you don't run it. In this scenario, if seat 7 is the Boom Dandy, tells no one, gets executed, blows up, evil team wins, I'm leaving. I'm walking out. That seems horrible. You have to be able to read if somebody's having, the want to be executed or something to avoid that from happening. That seems really rough. And seat 7 being a character that has huge influence over the game, like the Pit Hag. If the storyteller is playing as the Pit Hag as well as storytelling, how are they supposed to maintain a balanced game when they're operating based on the interests of the Pit Hag additionally? is kind of brutal. This is one of those ones where I think the concept is fantastic, but I really need to trust the storyteller to just not deliver the most punishing, soul-crushing experience of my life to me. Which I think is fine, but it can be a little bit like that. We have stuff like the Saint. In the game we had with the drunk became the Fangu, we had a player who was the Saint that died at night. And it's like, well, it can't be a Fangu. I'm the Saint. Which is kind of funny. But I think as far as info goes, as far as putting everything else together, like the script on its own, with the exception of Boom Dandy, because I'm a Boom Dandy hater, is really good. I actually think everything is really good. And so it's just entirely you're giving the storyteller the keys to potentially run things with Seed 7. And I think once per game the storyteller may speak on its behalf is a bit rough, because if only an evil player is the one that is spoken to, that's really, really detrimental to the good team. I think it should be twice, and it should aim to be a player of each alignment without it specifically being said that it has to be. Maybe my one change. However, for concept, for storyteller fun and all that, I do think this is also an S. I just think it's very good. And like I said, like the script itself that it runs on is great as well. It's pretty balanced. It's just the running of the 7th seat, I think, would require practice in trying to make a balanced thing exist, which is fine. Okay, let's... The Djinn's Bargain. Now, the Djinn's Bargain is really interesting. Why did it come up with bootlegger? That's interesting. Okay, so the Djinn's Bargain, nominators may choose to die after making a nomination. If they do, their nominee's ability works twice until dusk tomorrow. So I did get to play this. This was a really interesting one, in my opinion. However, the game in particular that we played sucked because the script, the characters chosen, sucks. What was really funny to me was that during the setup of this script, we were talking about how legitimate it is to just put random characters into a bag and how balanced the game would be. And ideally, the perfect script would mean that you could just hit the randomize button, pick out a random bunch of characters, put them in the game, and it will be balanced. And I think this is bullshit. I think that would literally never ever happen. And people disagreed with me. And then we played this game with a storyteller basically randomly selected a bunch of characters and put them in, and it sucked. It was insanely evil favored. Now, I'm not here to be bitter about that game in particular, but I do want to point out specifically what happens to me in that game and why I think the script should be changed and is not balanced. I was the preacher. Now, the preacher is a great character. I choose minions, and the minions learn, and then the minions have no ability. That's great. On the supercharged script, where a minion potentially activating twice because they convince somebody to supercharge them, that seems really strong. On the first day, we wake up after me having already selected a person, and one of the people that I selected gets supercharged. I'm like, great, if they're going to activate twice, they can only be a demon or a townsfolk. That's fantastic news. A second player gets supercharged. I'm like, bitch, you know who I'm going to be picking tonight? There's going to be no doubling of minion abilities. On the third night, I do actually select a minion. And it lost us the game. Because that minion was the marionette. And the marionette stops having an ability. So they stop believing that they are a townsfolk. And then they just know that they can only be the marionette. Because as a townsfolk, they're notified that they were preached. I'm like, why would you fucking have this together? But then let's look at the other preacher targets. The assassin. What if they just fire early and you just never, ever have a good target? The assassin just learns the preachers in play and goes, and fucking moves on with their life. And the Zahn has the exact same thing. If it's a Zahn 1, you go, I'm poisoned. I never got to pick the Zahn. You just fucking do nothing. And the witch is the only good target. And the witch wasn't in play. It was a Zahn marionette game. And I never had an opportunity to meaningfully impact the game for good. I'm like, why is this character on the script? It was so deeply shit. So The script needs changing. The script needs work. I think the Djinn rule is very good and interesting. It helps create a fast game. You have to kind of fall onto the person that you're giving the extra ability. There is specifically a bunch of characters that are happy to die. Chef, investigator, clockmaker, librarian start knowing, but also the fisherman can just kind of send their advice. And then we also have the alchemist who gains one of these cursed fucking minion abilities. What, you want to alchemist assassin the demon one night? You alchemist witch your homies? That also seems terrible. So, I don't know. I think it's a really good idea from the Djinn. I think it's a really shit script, unfortunately. And so, this one ranks low. Sorry to say. Like I said, I would change the script. Djinn rule is fine. But next is the Phantom Detectives. Ooh, wait, is that a Fibbin? Fibbin detected. Okay, I have to keep in mind there is a Fibbin. Phantom Detectives, dead players, brackets, not demons, brackets, keep their abilities, brackets. Each townsfolk loses their ability at the start of night 1, then regains it on death. So this is similar to the One Day More. Is that what it's called? One Day More? Yeah. This is similar to One Day More. So if you die, you do not lose your ability. That's fine. Townsfolk lose their ability at the start of night 1, then regain it on death. So for the first couple of days, there is going to be no info. And then as townsfolk volunteer to die, then you gain your ability. I think that's a mathematical problem, right? If you have 7 players, you have 3 nights of info potentially to get. As the fortune teller, you're like, I need to die right the fuck now, or I'm never going to contribute to this game, and stuff like that. And I think there's other characters that can be the same. The dreamer is like, I need to die right now, or I'd stop being useful, ever. And that's really bad. You're going to have a ton of townsfolk stumbling over themselves to get executed, while the evil players are like, oh. So you're just like looking for the demon that doesn't want. But they're like all the you start knowing characters, right? So the demon wants to bluff as a you start knowing character, a 1-2-3er, which is an interesting inversion of what the kind of meta dictates currently, which I think is good. I think that is interesting. And then stuff like the engineer, like the abilities kind of protect them, so you want to use it later and like narrow things down. However, the organ grinder kind of ruins all of this, because with the organ grinder, in my experience in playing it, it prevents executions 90% of the time. On the first day, we had a 12-player game, and we had 6 nominations with 5 votes. And you just couldn't see anyone on the block ever. And it's just really, really brutal. It's just really brutal. I don't know. I think the minions do not align with the things that they're trying to do. I think Witch is fantastic, right? There's going to be a lot of nominations. There's going to be a lot of attempts at execution the first day. The Witch activating helps turn on a good player. So if anything, the Witch is bad for the evil team to active on the first day. The Witch wants to pick themselves and then later start picking people, right? I don't really see the value in the boffin, unless if it's a boffin engineer. Maybe something like that. I don't see any other ability being helpful. But the other thing is that the demon can't say that it has or does information ever because they're alive, right? So the demon gaining a townsfolk ability that gives them info. Why? What does that accomplish? It seems really bad. However, the Boffin Fangu or Imp Banshee is great. And horrible. Everything else seems bad. Boffin seems like a horrible choice. I think Wizard is like way too powerful for what's going on here. Everyone is already scrambling to just make the Djinn rule work. I don't think the Wizard is fair for the good team here. Because again, the detriment is only to the good team. So having insanely powerful evil team, I think, is really brutal. I don't know. I think this is maybe a C. Unfortunately, maybe a B, maybe high B. I think it's better enough to see the wizard. I just think that you're like severely handicapping the good team, especially in a small game. So you want like a 15-player game, so that you're actually doing stuff. But then all the evil teams is going to make it even worse for you to try and do anything or be impactful. So I don't know. My gut read is that it is bad, unfortunately. Next is the River Styx. The Ferryman's ability is amended to each 9 asterisks the demon may choose if all dead players regain their vote token. This is really interesting conceptually because if there's all dead good players, the demon can do this to make them think they're evil and sow dissent between them. Or you can have known dead, because we have stuff like the Investigator. You can have known dead minions, like encourage them to dead vote and then ferryman. So I think there's actually a lot of interesting read and play with this. Dead players can be a lot more active in voting and nominating because they have a chance to get their ability to vote back, which I think is really cool. As for the actual characters on the script, I don't see anything that's too crazy. It's a nice no jinxes script. We love that. It's actually just an S. It's just a solid script. Like, I'm not seeing any too powerful things, right? So my main crap is, as a player coming in and playing this for the first time, you are already having to grapple with the new Djinn rule. Having something like the Wizard, which is like anyone that is not wearing underpants cannot be executed today, and then you trying to fucking understand what that means is impossible. It's just too much. And so having just a good solid script that has normal game solving and play and would work fine without the general, with the interesting general added in, is going to be more balanced and more fun and a better experience. And that's why I think that this script is a good one. I'm always of the preference that a no jinx script is better. I think up here. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay. What's next? We have the Warrens. So we have a Spirit of Ivory as well. If 5 or more players live, evil players who nominate other living evil players, not travelers, immediately swap characters. So I had a custom character which was like this, called the Waltz Cinder. And basically what would happen is, if the Waltz Cinder was nominated and no evil player voted for them, they would change characters. They would swap with the minion. So what would happen is, if all good voted for this person, they would put on the block and there was another alive evil player, the Waltz Cinder would swap with that evil player, keeping the Waltz Cinder alive, and that minion would die instead, but on like the different player position. And this feels like it's exactly the same, except it's not automatic. It's like intended, like an intended swap by the nomination. So the demon can nominate a minion to move the demonship onto them, but it means that the demon is over there now. And then if they put heaps of votes onto them, the demon can throw it back to the other minion and swap back by nominating them back. And my experience of running the Waltz Cinder was that players fucking hated it, basically. The idea was that, is there a recluse on the script? No. So the idea was that a player who is registering as evil could also impact this thing. And like, if the recluse voted, then the Waltz Cinder would stay where it was kind of the idea. So the good team had some play with it. But players fucking hated that. They thought it was unsolvable. It was too difficult to grasp what was going on, and they hated it. And so my read is that this is going to be the same. You think you've got the game solved, they move it around. I already think the little monster is impossible to solve most of the time. Sometimes you get lucky, most of the time you do not. And it's just too hard to know what's going on. You don't get any information as to where the demon is, and it's moving around. And, you know, minions can obfuscate it as best they can because they're able to choose it. And this is the same. The difference is that you have a little bit of public info. You have to track what all of the nominations are. Towncry will help with that a lot. And so I think it might just be too hard. This script is not too crazy. Why would you put Legion on it? Yes, I have nominated Legion. I am now Legion, and so are they. Why? It doesn't interact with the general at all. There's no point. Because Ali is much more interesting here. Harpy, Serenovus, Assassin. We're actually just, if you would just remove Legion, this would be so much better. I think everything else is kind of fine. The Ogre is really funny because the Ogre becomes evil from picking an evil player and then nominates them later on, gaining the evil ability, becoming a minion or whatever, which is great. Potentially huge gameplay. I think everything else is fine. I don't know. I'm just mad Legion exists. I also just think that the general is way too powerful. This is one of those ones that would be perfect if you had a custom character that just interacted with the general. I have a character from the Empire of Dirt script where you're waking up at night and you learn how many characters changed or something like that, which would be perfect for this because you wake up and you go, oh, I know that the evil team activated the general and moved around, which I think is kind of required. Otherwise, it might just be way too impossible to solve. And I think it kind of ends up in B tier. Unfortunately. Alright, next is This Is Not My Beautiful House. And the only general is the Amnesiac is considered an outsider character type. Is this a gripe? JC, are you upset about how the game has been designed so far? I don't get it. I think this is kind of humorous. All it means is that you're giving the Amnesiac a downside, potentially. Or you could just probably run it as normal. I think it reads as an outsider just fine. But you just maybe don't give it a super powerful ability in exchange. Just give it a normally good ability. Maybe a downside if balance calls for it. But everything else seems fine. Yeah, Minion Demons don't seem too crazy. Townspeck seems fine. Ceylon, Devil's Advocate is interesting. Pacifist is interesting. Going for a more Bad Moon Rising thing, but centered around the Amnesiac being an outsider. That's deeply funny to me. I think this is just fine. I think this is just a solid, maybe, yeah, I put this at the bottom of A. That's the wrong one. This one. Put this at the bottom of A. It's something for sure. I think it just, the rule doesn't give us enough to understand the author's intent, is my gripe of it. But basically, I think it's just a commentary that the Amnesiac is more unhelpful than helpful most of the time, which I agree with. It's the same problem with the Wizard, where just the Amnesiac can dominate the conversation without anyone ever being able to solve what it is. Because the storyteller needs to be like, this is the fucking Amnesiac ability. And make it really obvious so that the Amnesiac can... So, into the theater of the mind for a moment. You are a dungeon master running Dungeons and Dragons. You have presented a puzzle to your party. It is a locked door. There is no other complications with this locked door. How long do you think it will take for them to open this door and solve the problem? Did you say less than 4 hours? You may be incorrect. I think that is why the Amnesiac is potentially more of a downside than an upside. And I think this script is just a commentary on that, rather than actually bringing anything new and special and unique to the game, which is kind of funny. In the same way as the Al-Hadikia one, which is just like, let me fucking fix this problem. Because the Al-Had is unplayable. And then you go, well, actually, the Al-Had's kind of good now. And you go, well, actually, the Amnesiac makes more sense now because it's just shithouse. Which is really funny. Alright, next one is Train Killer. And spoiler alert, I fucking hated this one. And I really liked the next one. So we're gonna end on a high note at least. This script has an interesting concept and has the same problem as I See Dead People, or whatever it's called. Where the Special General is an existing unreleased character. The Special General is each night asterisk, the demon attacks the next living in-play characters in script order. Characters who survive might get re-attacked. And so it's going to start with the mayor. And this is my gripe with the script. The script order is very intended, and so the mayor player has the shittest time. Basically, the Djinn rule says, yes, we must kill things in order from top to bottom. And then the mayor says, well, you're going to hit me and it's going to bounce somewhere else. If it bounces somewhere else and someone dies out of order, the mayor is instantly confirmed to be in play. If the mayor is confirmed to be in play, the mayor cannot survive until final 3. You do not have an ability. You are just there to die. That's the entire thing. The one caveat to this is that the lycanthrope may protect you because the lycanthrope might kill people out of order. And so the mayor and the lycanthrope are required to be in play for the townsfolk to not be instantly solvable for the Night Order who deaths. And I think that sucks supremely. And what's extra silly about this to me is that both of the demons don't choose who dies. The storyteller chooses who dies. So it goes, the storyteller chooses who dies. Oh, no, wait. There's a special Djinn rule that means the deaths have to be in a certain order. But then the mayor is the first one of that order, which means the storyteller chooses who dies. Like, why the fuck have you put this extra loophole in here? That makes no sense to me. And so that was kind of my major gripe here, where you spend this entire time trying to figure out what's going on. Now, I was the Raven Keeper, mind you, and I had a mayor who died on the first night, 2 village idiots before me. And we're playing an 8-player game, 9-player game. And so it was also really cutting it close for me to die as the Raven Keeper. I would have had to have died on the second last night. So the Raven Keeper has to be really high in that night order for it ever to happen, especially if there's village idiots. But it also means that if you're setting up a game and you go, okay, there's a mayor, there's 3 village idiots, and there's a lycanthrope, the Raven Keeper's not dying. Don't put it in the bag. Alright? We also had a little monster with a poisoner and a wizard. And the poisoner was claiming to be king. We had a drunk choir boy that learned the poisoner, who claimed king instantly on the first day from the bluffs. And obviously the choir boy's like, I know that they're the king. That's great. And it just made it impossible to place an evil team. Just that game in particular sucked gratuitously, but it does also point out how poorly the script is put together to comprehensively do the thing it's trying to do. Like, some stuff makes sense, right? But the choir boy says, yes, if the demon kills the king, you'll learn who the demon is. Well, yes, the king, who will die on mayor, village idiot, village idiot, village idiot, village idiot, artist, lycanthrope, raven keeper, monk, fortune teller, seamstress, pixie, steward, king. On the 13th night, the king might die. Or any combination of those things therein. I'm like, why? None of this makes any sense. I just think it's bad. I had a shit time playing it. I really did. And so I was the Ravenkeeper that had to be public about being the Ravenkeeper, because when I die is going to be really clear. Or I can get Lycanthrope killed, potentially activate earlier, which would be even better. Did not happen. It was known exactly when I would die at night because of the characters claimed. I'm poisoned. I select the poisoner. I learn the king. Yay for me. I don't believe that they're the king. We execute that guy. He's just not holding a little monster. It was the wizard instead. How the fuck am I supposed to solve this game? Which was just really brutal. I think the killing order idea is really interesting. I just think saying, here's my cool idea, here's the mayor immediately who interrupts that whole thing, ruins it instantly. I think the mayor and the lycanthrope should not be on there. I think that you should have the Ravenkeeper and or the Sage kind of in the middle, so the evil team has opportunity to execute them, but also there isn't too many nights upon which that they would never activate based on the night order. And then how you order stuff is based on that. Like, the fortune teller is so low that you have to have not so many characters in play that they will just always get all of the information. That's like really brutal. So relying on the poisoner to interact with this. And poisoner and spy, the monster, is kind of brutal. And there's so many jinxes. I just really hate it. I hate it so much. D tier. Get out of here. I really don't want to play it again. I think the evil team should change. I think the general is fine. I just think the script is so bad that it just ruined my possible enjoyment of it. And now, as I promised, lucky last, Witch Hunt, which I did actually like quite a bit. I think this is the best use case for the little monster because it's only the little monster, and you have opportunity to just kill all of the evil people and get value out of it that way. But here's the special rule: all minions are witches. Nominated demons cannot move tonight. You added a fucking general to fix the little monster from being impossible to solve? I'm shocked. Wow, it's balanced now. But also, all witches is actually really cool. It makes the game kind of quick. You get to play around. You know, do I think I'm witch cursed? I'm always witch cursed. Do you want to try and nominate or not? You're going to try and game it. How confident are you in the execution? We have the town crier, which works really well in helping for solve the game. And the lycanthrope as well, and stuff like that. Because the little monster's not going to choose kills. There's no jinxes. A lot of this stuff just works really nicely. You have 3 minions to potentially damsel guest. Suddenly, having the damsel and the huntsman together makes sense. I really liked this. I thought this works really well. When I did play this, I was evil. And we lost. On the second last day, we had 2 witch activations. One on a witch, one on a player, and then we executed a witch. So it was just me left, and I happened to be holding the baby because I knew this was coming. And we go on to final 3, and everyone is like, it can only be Keith because of these reasons. And I was trying to claim damsel, and then I had to backpedal on something that was not damsel. It wasn't feasible to believe that a damsel was still alive and all this kind of stuff, and it kind of fell apart. And the reason that we lost was because my bluff fell apart, and that's fine. Should have had somebody else holding the baby or set up to potentially run that extra mile, you know. But I think the game was still good. Like, I was evil. I ran it to the end. I lost. We played, did some goofy plays, and it was still fun. It was still good. Instead of getting to the end of the game and being like, what the fuck? That was unsolvable. This sucked. You know, I was at this huge disadvantage or whatever from forever. You know, I think it was good. I think this is also an S. Probably here. Yeah, easy top 3. Well, this is my final tier list. All 16. We didn't actually get that many that sucked really hard. 1/4 of them. That's not that bad considering. And then we have like a lot of very good ones. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what the actual results are. You can check in a couple weeks to see if I'm really based and true or not. Or play it for yourself, and you completely argue with me in the comments. I will entertain all kinds of theological debate here. It's fine. I argue with people all the time in the comments about others, different stuff. About games and stuff that I have run. But this is either my knee-jerk reaction if I have not played it, and I will be going through and playing all of them eventually, or my first-hand experience from having played it. Like, the game that I played of Ballad of Seed 7 sucked. I had a bad time. But I recognize the script has a really interesting concept and can potentially deliver on it really well. Other ones, like I See Dead People, which was just fundamentally could not be understood, was bad. And you have to understand, as a game designer, right? You make a game, you put it in the box, you write the rulebook to be as readable as possible, and then you deliver it to people, and they pick it up, they read it wrong, they run it wrong, people have a bad time and go, well, the game designer sucks. And you're like, well, you misread all the words wrong. But whose fault is it? Me for not being clear enough, or the person for misinterpreting it? Right? When you only have 2 lines of text to describe to me a whole different way for the game to be played, it kind of removes a bit of the nuance and doesn't give itself to be explained. And so some of these are really going to suffer. Or some of these are just trying to reach too far or play too hard to try and be something different other than the core Clock Tower experience. If you're removing pieces of the puzzle to be solved, it's going to suck. The whole point is that it's supposed to be, you know, crunchy and complex and a lot of moving pieces to try and figure out what's going on. But that's it. This has already been a very long video. And I think some of these things are worth looking at. Some of these things are really interesting concepts. And if you are building stuff for Blood on the Clock Tower, you know, it pays to see what other people are working on, what other people think are good, what made it into the script competition, and cool stuff like that. So I don't feel worse for wear for having gone through and played them, and maybe stuff that I build in the future will be better because of it. Maybe I won't make the same kinds of mistakes, or maybe I feel, gratified the things that I have made are better, and I can believe in that. But look, get in the comments, tell me what you think. What ones are your favorites? Do you agree with this list or not? Do you have any that you're really excited to try out, or any changes for ones that exist that you think might make it better? Because that's the kind of shit that I'm interested in hearing about. And then maybe when the VODs come out, you can come and see me play some of them. Here on the screen, I will have the Blood on the Clock Tower playlist, which is where you will find all the videos when they do come up, and all the other games that I have been playing in Blood on the Clock Tower recently. There's also another playlist on the channel where you can find me building and working on stuff and the custom stuff that I make, and advice for storytellers, and building setups and running the Savant and stuff like that. If you're interested in any of that stuff, check out what's on the screen, and also consider hitting the subscribe button, because I do a lot of Blood on the Clock Tower content on this channel, and I appreciate when people want to stick around and entertain me entertaining them with some of that. So I don't know, stick around, maybe nominate me next time. I'm up, holding the evil token, holding the baby, come get me executed, and then maybe we'll get through it.